Welcome to World Chefs Podcast. I'm your host, Ragnar Fridriksson, and you're listening to World on a Plate. Today, I want to talk about inclusion and autism in particular in the culinary profession. Most people now realize that kitchen management needs to change and the profession needs to become more considerate towards different needs of different individuals, whether we're talking female inclusion, younger generation, or people with different abilities, as we say. And so today I want to talk about inclusion and autism in the culinary industry. And so I have with me here Franklin Becker, Chef Franklin, who is a renowned chef and entrepreneur, and he was the alumni of the Culinary Institute of America that we all know, has 30 years of very diverse experience in the New York restaurant scene, and currently a partner in the hospitality department, which is a consulting company in the New York. But also, what we know maybe is not so much about Franklin is that, well, he's appearing on TV shows as Top Chef Masters, Iron Chef America, the Today Show on NBC. And so Chef Franklin is another example of chef who is using the power of the white jacket to fight for a cause that is dear to him. And so I just want to welcome on the show, Franklin. Nice to have you. An honor to have you, Chef.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be on the show.
Really a pleasure to have you, and great inspiration to us to see what you've been doing. You've been supporting Autism Speaks, right, which is like a celebrity chef gala with and you've been doing this with a great passion over many years. I want to know your involvement is quite a personal one, and do you mind telling us where your journey starts and how did you become engaged in this particular subject?
Sure. So my eldest son, Sean, who's 23, was diagnosed with autism when he was 21 months. And back in 2005 and 6, I was taking him to Nordorf Robbins Music Center in NYU in New York for music therapy on Saturdays. And basically what happened is they came to me one day and said, "We can't do this anymore. We don't have the funds." And I didn't accept that. And so I went out and raised the $500,000 to basically keep the program going. And when I did that in 2006, a couple by the name of Bob and Suzanne Wright, who founded Autism Speaks, were there. Autism Speaks was in its early days. It had been founded a year before. And Bob was a very influential individual who was the vice chair of NBC. He was the chairman of NBC and the vice chair of GE. And he said, can you do this for Autism Speaks? And I said, I have a better idea. And I came up with the concept of the Chef's Gala, which is each chef cooks for a table of 10 in front of the guest, which has never been done at events in New York before. So it kind of took the world by storm. And our first event was 2007. We raised 1.2 million and subsequently have gone on to raise over 25, 30 million throughout the years. So it's just a wonderful event. It brings together incredible chefs. We've had Eric Repair, we've had Michael Simon, we've had Andrew Zimmern, we've had Charlie Trotter, God rest his soul. We've had some incredible chefs, Michael Guinor, who some of you may know from Food and Fun in Iceland. It's always been the who's who of the culinary world. And they all come out to raise awareness and raise money for autism.
That's great. And I mean, when you first started, how was that received by your fellow chefs? You have some great names there. Was it easy to get them engaged, like for them to take time from a busy business? Was it like
the chef community? As you know, the chef community is one of the most giving communities there is. So it was kind of, I wouldn't use the word easy. Whenever you start something, it's always challenging, but everybody came out and supported me. It was incredible. And throughout the years, we just keep on getting better and better and better.
Yeah. And I mean, so you've raised, you said millions have been raised in research and to, in a quest to find a cure or to somehow like help the families go through, give more of maybe a meaningful life to individuals who maybe were.
I think the most important, I think the most important thing is when you're, and I don't want to use the word afflicted, when you're gifted with a special needs child.
Yeah.
You have to look at the world a little differently. There's a poem called Welcome to Holland, ironically, that is very profound. So it goes something like this: when you are getting ready to have a child, you start reading guidebooks. It's kind of like going to Italy, right? So you start reading guidebooks and you start discovering that Italy has the Roman ruins, and Italy has beautiful waters off the coast of Naples, and it has beautiful mountains, and has incredible food. And you start doing all your research about Italy, and the stewardess turns around and says, "Welcome to Holland." And you haven't done any research about Holland.
Right.
You have absolutely no idea. And everybody else is going to Italy, but you're stuck going to Holland. And when you start to look around and you start to realize that Holland has windmills, and Holland has Rembrandts, and it has beautiful flowers, and it's this incredible country, you start to realize that you're not in a place filled with pestilence and problems. You're in another beautiful place. That said, it's very different than the place you set out to go to. And you'll always be, I don't want to use the word jealous, but you'll always be aware of the fact that other people are in Italy and you're not.
Yeah.
But if you sit back and you start really looking and you start to enjoy everything that Holland has to offer, it's not such a bad place. So I think what that tells you is you have to appreciate what God has given you. And although it's not what you expected, it still can be a wonderful, beautiful thing. And I think that's what autistic people teach us, is that there's another way to look at life. There's another way to look at things. And they're not stupid people. They're very, very smart. They're just trapped in a different world or a different place. And you have to learn how to speak Dutch to communicate, right? You can't speak Italian to them. They're not going to understand Italian. But ironically, I didn't realize this until my son was 20.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that he wasn't a little boy, that he was a man. And he was filled with thoughts and ideas and things he wanted to get out that he was unable to because he didn't have the words to do so. But we got him a device to type on, and he started communicating in the most profound way. And the words he was using are words you have to look up in the dictionary.
Right.
And it was just, he was that brilliant. Yeah. And since discovering this device and discovering the ability to communicate, he has come out of his shell more. And he's more a part of our world.
Yeah.
Not that anybody really wants to be a part of our world. I think we'd all probably want to be a part of his world. But
no, that's a nice way to put it. Yeah, no, it's actually put things into a perspective the way you present them. I mean, and I know. So your son is now a grown up. So you've been how to say, dealing with this for over a couple of decades. Have you felt that people's perception has changed towards people with
yes and no. Yes and no.
Still is a long way to go.
I think it's more prevalent, and I think we notice autistic people around us on a daily basis, and especially in the workforce. But I don't think I think people still put them in a bubble of handicapped instead of handy-capable. They are very capable, and they might need a little more instruction, but once they get it, it will be done, whatever it is, will be done to a level much greater than any of us can do. And you can look at an example on America's Got Talent, this kid, Cody Lee, who's a singer, who has a unbelievable voice, an incredible way about him when he's singing. And when he's not singing, he's blind and he's fully autistic. And his behaviors and his mannerisms are fully autistic.
Yeah.
But autism is a spectrum. It's not limited to people like Cody or people like my son, Sean. It is a spectrum. And I think in many ways, a lot of us, especially in the chefs community, have autism in some way or shape or another. ADHD is on the autistic spectrum. ADD is on the autistic spectrum. And so we have to understand, and we have to start to be more accepting of individuals with differences. When you're a chef, and especially when you're coming up the way we did, and you're kind of wanting to be the best of the best, and you can't stop yourself until you've reached this level of perfection. And when in the early years, especially in the 80s and 90s, when I came up, the kitchen was an abusive place.
Right. Yeah.
It was a place where acceptance of mediocrity or acceptance of less than was not the case. You either performed the way the chef wanted you to, or you were out. What autism has taught me is it's taught me to be a better teacher, to be more compassionate of differences. Maybe the person who's on garde manger is not capable of being on meat roast. Maybe the person on meat roast is not capable of being on garde manger. Doesn't mean that they'll never be a chef. Doesn't mean that they'll never reach a level that satisfies you as the chef. You just have to know how to handle people and how to teach them to be the next, Daniel Boulud. I think it teaches patience. And I think in a lot of ways, the Me Too movement has done that for us as well, because we've been forced to be patient and we've been forced to be more compassionate, because if we're not, somebody's going to call us out on our bullshit. And I think that's super important to recognize and realize. And this population is growing. It is going to be more and more prevalent than it is today. And if we don't start putting them into the workforce and engaging them in a meaningful way, then we're cheating ourselves and we're cheating them.
Yeah. So definitely, you think there should be a place for people with autism in our professional kitchens. We just need to adapt better and have a more open mind and maybe a more healthy management style in our kitchens. Maybe
100%.
Maybe it's better for everyone. It'll be a.
I think it is. I was visiting London, I guess a few months ago, and my friend Tim Tolley, who I went to Culinary Institute of America with, had a autistic gentleman in his kitchen. And he actually said to me, he's one of his best workers. And I said, really? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I have to manage him more. I have to be compassionate. I have to explain certain things a little differently, but he does what he does perfectly. And it was amazing because we're always in the mindset as professional chefs, like, how do we get up to the next level? How do we grow? How do we grow? How do we grow? And a person like my son Sean, or a person like this individual, gets great satisfaction from being able to do a task to its completion. And it doesn't matter what that task is. That task can be washing dishes. That task can be prep cook. That task can be a line cook. They're going to do it to a level that is perfect.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, as you said, the kitchen environment has often been even toxic to our point, and maybe some people listening to us would think that it would be too much of a burden or too much of a responsibility for me to take on a person that has a special needs. But you think, or you have examples of where you just mentioned some where actually it can bring more into the brigade. It can bring a different environment that we can learn from each other.
I think it can bring, and I've had autistic people working for me in my kitchens over the years. It can teach everyone compassion. Mm-hmm. It can teach everyone respect. It can teach everyone patience. We're a society that looks at the glass, half empty, and in reality, it's half full. And we need to strive to better accept people with differences. Mm-hmm. Not everyone is going to be Magnus Nilsson or Daniel Boulud or Eric Repair. Not everyone is going to be that, and that's okay. I think the greatest thing that we can give back, and we're such a charitable group as in general, chefs, we didn't go into this to become wealthy. We went into this because we wanted to make people happy with our gift, right? So the biggest gift we can give back is to educate, to teach, to mentor individuals that need mentoring.
Yeah.
So it's almost natural for us to take a special needs person and develop them. It should be natural for us to do that. We live in a different era where the abuse has got to stop. Although at 53 years old, I've certainly achieved my share of abuse and certainly have given my share out in my early years. What autism has done for me is it's taught me to be a better person.
Yeah, yeah. This is actually, and listening to you, it sort of opens my eyes in a way that we were at World Chef Congress last year. We talked a lot about how do we attract and retain talent, young people, attract them into our industry. And we were saying that, well, we have to change our management styles, and it's easy to say. And maybe now when I listen to you, I almost take it from the other way around. Well, how do you change the environment in your kitchen? Is actually you make the first step. You bring in people that have differences, that where you need to actually open up and be open to other people's differences. It actually is what might change the culture in your kitchen. So it has.
Think about it for a second. Diversity. Diversity in the kitchen. Diversity in the kitchen is not new. We've had everything from Hispanic workers to Asian workers to to Bengalis to we've had everybody working for us in our restaurants. People from Africa. So diversity is not new. How did we manage to work with these other groups from other countries is no different than working with people with different skill sets. Mm-hmm. We can learn from them the same way we can teach them. Some of the best dishes in my kitchen. I had a restaurant a few years back before the pandemic where I had gone on a trip to Mexico to do some research and development. And I came back and I started looking around my kitchen, and I noticed that I had somebody from Peru. I noticed I had somebody from the Dominican Republic. I had somebody from Venezuela. I had somebody from San Salvador. And I had, a few people from Mexico. And I said, what are your favorite dishes that you grew up with? Can you prepare them for me? And so they prepared these dishes. And then I took those dishes and I turned them on their head and turned them into an upscale offering for my restaurant clientele. But the flavors were pure. Mm. They were pure Dominican, they were pure Peruvian, they were pure Mexican. Right. And so the team was vested in what we were doing, more than I've ever had any team vested before, because they were contributing their heart and their soul and their love to our team. Mm-hmm. In the case of an autistic child or an autistic adult, they can only contribute that love. They don't know, they don't know half, they don't know less than 100%. Okay. It may not be the 100% you're looking for, but doesn't mean that you can't teach them to give the 100% you're looking for. It just means you have to have patience to do so. Some people say, well, that sounds like too much of a project and it's too hard to do. I barely have enough time to train my current staff. Mm-hmm. But we always have stages and we always have shadows. And maybe it's about the cook on meat roast or the cook on garde manger taking this individual and helping them rise to the occasion. And maybe that's teaching the person on meat roast or the person on garde manger how to become a sous chef. Mm-hmm. And then the sous chef subsequently is going to become the chef. So we're constantly educating and constantly evolving. I don't see a difference because somebody has a quote unquote disability. It's just a different ability.
Exactly. And what my biggest takeaway from discussing with you, and thank you for all your openness and honesty. My takeaway would be that, if you embrace diversity in your kitchen, whatever that diversity could be, people with differences and different coming from different worlds actually can enrich in your own organization, your own kitchen, your own staff, and your own brigade. Really, it'll 100%. Be what will help you grow as such. So it's just a positive 100%. Factor.
Absolutely, I think that and I can't say this enough. The chef community is just such a wonderful community. I mean, look at Jose Andres and what he does for for people, feeding them during disasters. And I don't know any other community that has individuals as selfless.
You're right.
As the chef. And look at the number of hours we spend in the kitchen trying to put, or playing with tweezers or trying to put that perfect, dot in the perfect place. Maybe we should look at ourselves, because maybe a lot of us are actually on the spectrum. Mm-hmm. And we don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Okay. I know I mean, I'm ADD. If I have something that is not right and I get OCD sometimes about things, those are all spectrum, situations, right? So I think we have to be more cognizant of what's going on in the world, and we have to step out of our comfort zones and start to help those that are less fortunate than us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So now when we have established that, and I think our audience is now captivated, and they might be thinking, hey, listen, in my organization, we haven't embraced that yet. Is there any, as a starting point, any structure they can reach out to? Is there any support they need, or any sort of particular information they need to adapt themselves before they integrate other people with autism in the organization? Or
so Autism Speaks is a worldwide organization, and it certainly will help kind of bridge gaps, but there's tons of places, and I don't know what's in Europe, but in New York and the United States in general, there's tons of support.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best way to prepare yourself for a conversation with an autistic person is to understand that they know exactly what you're saying at all times. And they're not stupid, even though they might flap, or they might howl, or they might, turn around, or they might stutter, or they might not talk. It doesn't mean that they're not there. They're where they need to be in order to be comfortable. And what we need to understand is it's very hurt. And I'm going to go back to childhood for a moment.
Yeah.
When we were growing up and you're playing in the park, there's always the kid who's picked last. There's always the kid who's teased because he's fat, because he wears glasses, because he's too tall, because he's too skinny, because she has acne, whatever the scenario is. Kids are cruel. Mm. And they don't mean to be, but they are. And they jump on the bandwagon and they start teasing. And in our kitchens, that was the norm, right? If the kid who was too skinny, and I'm going to use that as the kid who couldn't cut properly was made fun of, right? Until they eventually quit the business, or they rose to the occasion and became better.
Yeah.
An autistic person isn't going to respond the way a non-autistic person responds publicly. What they're going to do when they're ridiculed is retreat back further into the abyss, as opposed to rise to the occasion. So the best way to handle an autistic person in your kitchen is to treat them with love and compassion, and to give them, and patience, and give them somebody to shadow, and give them a basic task to start, and then take the basic task and give them another task that's maybe a little bit more complex. And I guarantee you, it might be a little bit longer of a path to get to, exactly where you want them to be. But I guarantee you that they will become the best workers in your kitchen.
The reward is
the most reliable. They will be on time. They will punch. If you tell them, please do not punch the clock until 1 minute before your shift, and please do not punch the clock until, your shift is over, they will literally make sure that they are working up until that last minute, or they will make sure that they're that meticulous. Which, think about the 3-star kitchen for a moment.
Yeah.
We're training people to become so hyper-focused and so meticulous on all the details. And some of the people we're training just can't do it. Okay? Well, guess what? These people can. Because that's all they know is detail, attention to detail.
Excellent, Franklin. Yeah, thank you very much for sharing this. It's been a really an eye-opener, and I hope for our audience out there as well. It will have people thinking how they know that by being more open and open to diversity, and just that might help bring more compassion and love into their own kitchens. That is actually would be good for everyone, wouldn't it? We become.
I want to read one thing for you that my son wrote to me back in 2020 when I first heard this, because I think it can make a huge impact on the listener. So just bear with me 1 second. So my son, I hadn't seen him for a little while because I was traveling, and we started communicating, and he was using the device for the first time. And I asked him, I said, what do you want to do? And what do you want to contribute? Like what's going to make you happy? And what do you want to tell people? And he's like, I want to always learn and grow and to contribute to the world. Everything. How do I put that in all caps? Everything. And then I said, and what do you want to tell people? And he's like, that I'm smart, but my body does not do what I want. I want to help people and feel meaning in my career. So think about that for a moment. He wants to feel meaning in his career. Is that any different than any one of us? He wants to help people. Is that any different than any one of us? He wants to contribute to the world. Everything, in his words. That's pretty ambitious. Mm-hmm. I would think that anybody who's going for a 1 or 2 or 3 Michelin star is pretty ambitious. So I think philosophically they align with us. Mm-hmm. I think we just have to figure out how to tap into that.
That's right.
All right.
Right, Franklin.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Franklin. It's been an amazing talk, and I really loved having you on the show. So and again, thank you for sharing all that with us. And I'm pretty positive that it's going to open other people's eyes as well. So I really thank you for joining us.
I hope so. Thank you very much. Now you'll let me know how I can get a copy of this.
Absolutely. Just a second, Franklin. I just want to thank all the audience out there for staying on the podcast. And please, if you like the show, give us a little remark and subscribe. So I'll see you next time. I want to thank Franklin again. Thank you, everybody. You're listening to World on a Plate. I'm your host, Ragnar Fredriksson, and this is World Chef's Podcast. See you next week.